Hey Rivermoor, FARIX here to bring you my Fakes and Baits class. This is the first instructional video I've made, and I hope it helps all you fighters out there looking to improve your game. Since this is a first for me, if you have any questions about the content of the video, or you would like me to explain anything further, feel free to message me on Facebook. You can find me at benfarix, or email me at kleinfighter@gmail.com. Kleinfighter is Klein fighter@gmail.com. Whatever's easier for you. Special thanks to our champion Draco for organizing these classes and putting this initiative together, and to Banshee for letting me demo on him in front of the camera. So without further ado, welcome to Fakes and Baits.
What up, Rivermoor? It's FARIX. I'm tired. Let's do this. This is going to be a Fakes and Baits class. I can say it right. So basically, we're just going to go over a few definition kind of things here in the beginning, and then I'll kind of use that to move into how to make up fakes and get them to work for you better. So the first thing is your ranges. So your short range is going to be, I can hit pretty much all of him, and he can hit pretty much all of me. That's the short range. So even if we're here, it's still short range. Even if we're here, it's short range. Your medium range is going to be, I can hit him on the forearm, and he can hit me on the forearm or the arm, but without moving, I can't hit any of his body or his legs. That's going to be your mid-range. And your long range is basically, we can tap each other on the hand maybe, and that's about it. We can't actually hit each other from this distance unless one of us moves closer. And then the other thing we have, can I just use it for a second? Can you face the camera real quick? Is the body quadrants. And this is going to be really important for building good fakes. So basically, you take your nipple line on your chest, so that's your top and your bottom, and then you take the other one, you make a cross, and that's your left and your right. So you've got your top right, top left, bottom right, bottom left, in the appropriate spots. And so basically, once we have that information, you're good to relax.
Okay.
Basically, once we have that information, you want to keep that in mind when you're thinking about fakes. Because if I fake his top shoulder and he bites really hard, the safest place I can go is to the opposite quadrant. So, because if I fake the other top one, he can still move over while I'm throwing. He'll be able to block it. If I fake the top and then go low, I'm probably going to beat him, but he still has time to try and drop that and get down there. So it's going to take you the longest to get there, but you're also going to be able to beat them because you should have about a half. Oh my God. You're also going to be able to beat them because you'll have about a half-second head start. So basically, the fake, they bite on it, and then as soon as you see them either drop their weight, move their hand into it, react in some way, basically. They react, he tenses up, I go to the opposite. And even if he tries to follow me, either with his sword or with his hand, I can still go around it, sorry.
Okay.
If you go across, you can still go around it with that little bit of a head start. If he's faster than you, that might not work out as well, but if you're similarly speeded and you use that cross, the cross body fakes, takes you a little bit longer to actually throw the shot, but you will beat them there just in terms of getting them to pull around. The other thing that he's doing well to protect against fakes is he's keeping his hand out. Because if their hand comes in towards their body, so if I step forward and throw, and his hand comes there to block, I can throw here, I can throw here, I can kind of throw here, but mostly to the opposite side of the body, right? So if their hand pulls back, or if their hand deviates kind of from where it normally goes, that's a good sign that they're going to block, and then you can proceed to throw the opposite shot, either top to bottom, across, or the other way. Slightly shorter, but kind of more predictable is top to bottom fakes. You can make these really extreme, like if you want to get into a crouch and throw here, they kind of crouch a little bit and then you throw up. Or it could even just be if you hold your sword real low, just doing something like this, stuttering just something to get him to come down, and then you come back up and go the other way. A fake I really like for that kind of setup is a real hard stutter, get about halfway to that hip, and then either inside, or if their arm is a little too inside, you can catch them on the outside too. So with that kind of information on throwing to different quadrants, you might find yourself getting into patterns. Like you definitely want to fake to the low, throw the high. So it's also good to be able to reverse them, where you fake the high and throw the low. However, so it's just about using the same principles to build your fakes, but then being able to take the shots out and switch them around. So like you can do a high cross, fake high cross hip wrap, but then it's also good to be able to fake hip wrap high cross. And those work in that way because my hand only has to move from right here to right there, whereas if I get close and he pulls his hand back, his hand has to go all the way across his body in order to catch it. Let me switch hands real quick so they can see on the camera. So if I fake low and then go for the high cross, my hand only has to come from here to here to go across, or you could even just go inside. But then his hand has to trace my hand across his body. So it's not impossible, it's just he has to flip the switch in his head, and then his body has to react as well. So as I said, like that mental, physical speed is going to play into it a bit when you're building these fakes. But in general, if you can get them to tense up or get them to follow you, you can then throw the fake or throw the actual shot after the fake. A lot of it is just being able to latch on to what they're reacting to versus just throwing a fake. Because if I throw something and I just kind of, like, he didn't know what was going on. It didn't matter if I faked or not in that case. I just got him to flinch with the movement and throw. Which can work as well, but you're not necessarily playing into the mental game at that point. Something that's important to keep in mind with fakes is you want to build fakes on a good foundation. So if you have a shot you really like, whether that's a simple high cross, a hip wrap, a chop, anything like that, it's important to start with a good solid shot that you can land. So if you walk up the first fight and you kind of land whatever shot you wanted to land, you get your high cross in, that's good. Now he respects the high cross more because you've actually inflicted damage to him with it, whether it was arm, body, whatever. Once you hit him with it, it's a much more viable fake. Because it's that little man instinct that's like, I'm not going to let him win again. That's what I think. So the second time, when you go to throw the high cross, if you start, as soon as you see his hand come over or him kind of move out of the way in any way, then you can come down, chop, hip wrap, whatever, as soon as you've gotten him to lock on to that high cross. So another thing to keep important when to keep in mind when you're doing fake building or like fake theory is you have your quadrants, right? Your long fakes, your short fakes. But another thing to keep in mind is you want to think about the timing of it. Because if, let's say, Nick counters everything I throw. So if from this, it just hits me or whatever, just counters everything, right? So if I know that he's going to counter as soon as I throw, I can use his timing to my advantage. So if I throw something, not even committing to anything, and he throws, it's not necessarily a fake in the traditional sense, but it's a way to fake with timing to get him to attack you. Kind of a more defensive fake, if you will. So if I walk up every time, I throw my high cross, he hip wraps me, just straight off the bat. Then I know as soon as I do this, he's going to do that, and then I'll do that. So it's just keeping that extra step in mind. Like I said, it's not necessarily a fake in the traditional way, but if you can play into what he wants you to do, it's almost more like a bait, which I guess is where we'll transition into that.
I was gonna say I would kind of be on the setups, kind of thing, less of the fakes. In my opinion, I'm sorry.
It's fair. No, I don't know. Like I start thinking about fakes, and my mind's like, but that's connected to this other thing, and then I gotta zip.
Fair.
So we're gonna talk about baits a little bit now. So baits, a lot of people think like when you're doing baits that you're gonna stand with like your hand out in front of you or some of this cheesy stuff, which is fun to do. That's not.
It's bad.
It's bad.
It's bad. Stop doing it. It's bad.
Keep it. I love you. So it doesn't have to be that drastic, I guess is my first point. Like you can stand, with your sword in your back foot hand just a little bit forward if you want to. Try and get him to swing at you, and then you can take that step out and try and counter or something like that. But that's not really the kind of baits I want to talk about here. The kind of baits I want to talk about here are more of like in the exchange, right? So instead of standing with my shoulder forward or something like that, I'm going to throw a shot that kind of leans my body forward a little bit, right? I'm going to throw low and like this. So now he is probably thinking going up top over something like that, maybe just down on the arm like that. So as soon as I do like this, I know that his shot is probably going to come in this arc above my head, right? So as soon as his hand or his sword leaves my sword from where he blocked, I'm going to move up and I'm going to hold this. Because if he tries to come in from any arc up top, I've got that block there, and then I'll step in and finish it with just one more shot. You can kind of do that with any angle. If you're familiar with house guard, that's probably the most effective way to use this. But also think of it like a box. Like if you get real low and fake and he blocks, he basically has to come up high unless he hits you in the leg. So if you just raise your sword up a little bit, you can cut off pretty much all that angle on top of you and then throw a response. And then along those lines, you don't want to make it too big necessarily, because if I just come up, I'm holding my sword like this, and I do something like that, he's probably going to hit me. And it doesn't really matter what I do. Whereas, like I said, if you're behind your sword, you can keep your sword between you and him. That's a good defensive position that you have access to right away. Whereas if I'm here, I'm doing like a backspin thing, it's going to hit you. And then on the other hand, you don't want to make it necessarily too small. It is kind of tailored to someone's skill level. Like noobs will probably usually fall for the put your hand out in front of you, they swing at it, you hit them deal. When you get into the same level as you or higher people who are of a higher fighting tier than you, basically you don't want to make it so big. So if I wanted him to hit me in this forearm, if he was new, I would probably do something like this, make it look real juicy, right? He can just reach out and tap it. But since I know he's fast, I know he's ready to go, I don't want to do that. I normally fight here, I want to lower it like just below his hand, right? Just where he thinks he might be able to get it, because then all I have to do is rotate my hand back or move up just that little bit. Because he's going to outspeed me every time if my hand's down here and I'm wanting him to swing at that. So just keep in mind how fast your opponent is and what they may or may not be paying attention to. That's another thing. I want you guys to just try and experiment with a whole bunch of things, because you never know what someone will or won't react to. Like day one noobs, it's super hard to predict where their stuff's going or what they're even swinging at, because a lot of times they're just trying to hit your sword. But so if you have something you like to do, high crosses, switching feet in the middle of the fight, just kind of do that stuff, play with it, experiment with it. Obviously don't do it if you're in a tournament or you're trying to show someone how good you are, that kind of thing. But just everyday sparring, fighter practice, park day, whatever, any chance you get, just kind of experiment with things. Put your hand up, down lower, put your hand up higher, see what you can get someone to play into your game. Because then once they started taking your baits, they don't want to hit you because they know you're trying to bait them. So that's when you start using your fakes. And then either they will start swinging at you again, or they'll be so busy trying to block you because they know that you can block in return because you're ready with those baits. that. Oh, lost my train of thought there. You go from baiting real hard to faking, because once you get them to swing at you and block and return just by knowing what your bait is, then you can start using your fakes either to get them to swing at you again or to throw them off their game by getting them to buy into it and hitting them on the opposite side. Alright, I got my little shield here just to exaggerate this a little bit. So, especially with punch shield, which is kind of, I think fakes and baits are especially fun with a punch shield, and that just kind of plays into my fighting style a lot. But he's got nice big rounds, so most of this will translate into the people that you'll see on the field every day. So fakes for shield, you have 2 instruments to block with, so he's a lot more safe, obviously. So a lot of people will block their sword side with their sword arm and their shield side with their shield arm. And you kind of want to base your feints on the assumption that they're going to do that. If they don't do that, that's something you need to think about and keep in mind. But we're just going to go off that basis for this. So for sword and shield, a lot of the same stuff applies. You use opposite quadrants. Opposite quadrants are going to be exceptionally helpful in this because wrap shots are going to come a lot more into play. So if I do something like fake real low and he drops his shield to cover, easy money. Okay, so if he's blocking his sword side with his board, it makes it super easy to get him out of position to follow up, right? But if he's blocking his sword side with his sword, it makes it a little bit harder to get something. Sure, I can probably throw another one, or I can throw inside maybe, but it's a lot harder to get him out of position when he's covering both sides correctly. And that's kind of why fakes and baits are really important in board, because it's a lot more a game of getting people out of position, especially when you have really big shields. Because we can get really close to each other, rubbing even, and we probably still can't hit each other on the first swing. But if he threw that and got his arm out a little bit there, I could cross and come up like this. So when you really get into the nitty-gritty, that's where your fakes and baits, like I was saying in single with baits, your fakes and baits are going to be your most bang for your buck is going to be in the middle of the fight rather than like an opener straight out of the gate. Okay, I have more stuff for single sword, but I'll go back to that. A fake I really like to do in board, I call it the double Sunday. So basically you're going to come down and fake low, and hopefully their shield will drop.
You take a step back.
I'll take a step back. Okay. So you're going to swing low, and hopefully their board comes down low, and their board shoulder pops out, and then you turn it into a dark side, all the way around, and you hit them with the back of the sword, like your hand's facing down. And then...
Sorry, go on, sorry.
And then as a follow-up to that, once you come around, if they didn't move, then you can throw down further hip here too. That's just a fake I really like to do, and it's fun.
Talk about the importance of level changes and fakes.
Okay.
Did you have that written down?
Kind of. They're very haphazard notes.
Okay.
So especially in board, level changes are going to be your best friend for fakes, because you have this free shield on this side of your body in order to work with. So if you come up and you throw a high cross and all of his stuff moves up just a little bit, you can come down and hit him in the hip, or even come down this way and hit him in the other hip. And just a lot of things like that. If you can get them, like if you start playing with them and you get them way down low, it's very easy just to spring up. I don't even have to jump even. I just have to unbend my knees, take a slight step forward, and his entire back is open more or less. So it works up or down. With board or with single, you won't see so much of shots twice to the same location because you don't have anything to kind of stop him from predicting you. And counter.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Juicy.
I see forearm. I smash.
But whereas, I'm awake now. But in board, it's a lot easier to get away with those double taps, especially because you have, like I said, you have this big wall in front of you. So if I throw something like 1, and then I take a little bit closer, he has to block a little more 2, and then I can drop and do a level change, or even I wouldn't have to do a level change if he swung at me. I could catch it and return, kind of thing. So you can use the added pressure of multiple strikes to the same location to kind of make him try and back up or force him to do something he doesn't want to do, kind of thing. If you're fighting in a ring, like a set ring, it's fun. You can just back him straight into the wall.
Stop. Stop. If all fights could just be done at mid-range, it's going to be a lot more fun.
There's also setups you can do, kind of a fake, kind of a bait, kind of more falls in the setup category. But when you come in here, if you throw something that kind of hits him in the sword arm, and then you pull back like you're going to throw a big one and wait, typically they'll swing if you hold your turn, more or less. So if we're doing kind of like a block strike tempo, like I throw, he throw, I throw, he throw, which is what a lot of people fall into. I throw, and then I come inside, or I go, and then I hold my turn. He might throw again, and then I can use the fact that I held my turn to watch where he's going and hit him. That takes a bit of practice, and you'll get better at it the faster and the longer you practice, just fighting in general. Hand blocks can play a really fun role in single sword, especially if you're in the other hand. Thank you. So what I can do is I can take a sidestep, throw a big old fake, and then I keep my arm out in front of me, kind of in my general chest area, so that when he comes down to either get arm or chest or shoulder, then I can take a step forward with my hand block and hit him again. So just using that first fake and then keeping in mind that you're going to hand block, you can kind of get one free shot in. Now he can hand block in return again. That just gets into a whole game of who can hand block harder, faster, stronger. But it is something to keep in mind.
Not me.
It is something to keep in mind though when you're doing like those opening fakes. And then especially in single, if you use a fake in the middle of your fight, it can sometimes net you more gains than if you had used it at the beginning. So instead of coming in with a big old fake and then either getting hit or he does fall for it, I block in return and he blocks. Instead, you can come in with something a little more simple. So like just kind of tap him on the hand a little bit. And then if he returns, you can just block. Or, ideally you block, otherwise, yeah. If it's Nick.
No block, only smash.
You can tap him on the hand and then stutter, and typically he'll react. He'll either sink into his block or he'll panic throw to try and keep from whatever you're doing, and then you've elicited that response from him, so you can just smack him.
Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the class. I'd like to apologize for all the jump cuts. I'm still new to the editing process, but that's something I think I can take out of future videos. I still wanted to publish this because I thought that there was a lot of good information in the class, and I hope you all are able to take some of these concepts and run with them. Once again, if you have any questions about the material covered here, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook. I'm Ben FARIX. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Happy holidays.